that if that's okay with you.
That's fine. And do you mind if I record it on this end?
No, that's fine. Okay. Absolutely. So I'm going to hit record, and then I'll just say, good afternoon, Carole. Thank you for talking with me, and that we're recording the conversation, and I'll start to ask you questions. If you have anything to say, feel free to interrupt or add on. There is a part where I ask you if you want to add anything else. If you're promoting any events or anything like that, feel free to mention it. Otherwise, I'll add in the website and the Facebook page and things like that later on.
Okay, and did I understand you to say this is supposed to be tailored toward 8 minutes, so I should try to keep my responses to that?
Right. Otherwise, I can edit things later on, too. Like, I'm not recording now, so... But, yeah, the actual assignment is for about an 8-minute thing about my significant woman that I'm talking about. So your part doesn't have to be that long, or it can be that long. It's up to you.
Yeah,
if you don't have, short answers and it's 5 minutes, that's okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'm ready when you are.
Is there anything you want to ask me before I start?
No.
All right. So I'm going to hit the record button, and then we'll go.
Great.
And I can always edit things later on if something you say you don't want it included or something like that. Okay.
All right.
Ready, set, go. Good afternoon, Carole. Thank you for talking with me today. I'm speaking with Carole Baskin of the Big Cat Rescue in Tampa, Florida. How are you today?
I'm fine, Caitlin. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Just to acknowledge that this call is being recorded.
Yes.
Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and feel free to interrupt if you have anything you want to add. First off, what inspired Big Cat Rescue?
Back in 1992, my late husband and I were at an auction buying llamas, and I had done bobcat rehab and release since I was 17 years old. But at the auction, the man next to me was bidding on a bobcat, and I leaned over to him and I said, when that cat grows up, she is going to tear your face off. And he said, I'm a taxidermist. I'm just going to club her in the head in the parking lot and turn her into a den decoration. So there was no way that was going to happen on my watch, and we came home with a bobcat that day. But she was an absolutely horrible pet, as would be expected, but she had been declawed, so there was no way she could be rehabbed for release back to the wild. So we started looking around for a mate for her, somebody that she could play with, because she was beating the snot out of our German Shepherd. And a guy said he would sell us bobcat kittens, but we had to drive there in person to pick them up. So this was in La Center, Minnesota. We lived in Florida. When we drove up there, there's no sign out front that says fur farm, but that's what it was. And when I went inside and he's pulling out all these kittens and showing us these kittens, I see this whole pile of dead cats over in the corner that had just their stomachs, the bellies removed, because that's what they use for the fur coats. And so I asked him if there was this big of a market for these guys as pets, and he said, no, whatever we don't sell as pets, we'll slaughter the next year for their fur. And so we said how much for every cat there, and we came home with 56 bobcats and lynx.
Wow, that is heartbreaking. But bless you for rescuing all of those cats.
Well, it was a knee-jerk reaction that any animal lover, if they had the wherewithal to do it, I think would have done that. But it led us on a journey to discovering what the bigger issues are, because we had no idea people kept these animals as pets. We didn't know about the trade in them as pay-to-play props and all of that sort of thing. So it was a real learning experience.
Oh, I can just imagine. So my next question was, how long has Big Cat Rescue been in business? But you kind of answered, did you say 1993 is when it started?
That was November the 4th, 1992, that we rescued
92.
Windsong the bobcat. So she's actually the true founder of the sanctuary.
Wow. Well, that's a really long time. How many cats are there now?
We currently have 65 cats here at the sanctuary. At our peak, we had about 100, but up until 2003, we were having to turn away. In that year, we turned away, I think, 312 cats in that year, and every other year, that number was doubling. So in 2003, we were able to pass a federal bill called the Captive Wildlife Safety Act, And what that did was it made it illegal to sell big cats across state lines as pets. So even though there were a lot of parameters there, the good news was that it slowed down the breeding and the abuse of the animals. So the following year, we only had to turn away 165, and then that number has been decreasing over the years. And then if you figure all of the cats that we purchased from the fur farms, we ended up buying fur farms out. Sorry about that. Let me turn off the radio. We ended up buying out 28 bobcats and lynx the following year from a fur farm, and 22 the year after that. And that ended the practice of killing cats for their fur in this country. There were no more cats being killed in fur farms. But those cats now, the few that are left, are in their 20s, and they're only designed to live to be 10 or 12. So a lot of those early cats have now passed on.
And you've got some elderly ones there.
Over 20 of our cats are over the age of 20, which is just unheard of.
Wow. Well, that's great if you're able to keep them healthy that long, and if their quality of life is good. I mean, that is a long time for cats to live.
And it is all about quality of life. As long as the cat is eating and enjoying life and doing well, then we'll do whatever supportive care necessary to keep them going. But when they tell us that they're done, our vets will help them.
Right. That's great. And how do you normally acquire the cats that you have?
Well, the early years, it was a lot of fur farm rescues, and then people started calling and saying, would you take my lion? Would you take my tiger? And I'm thinking, what are these people doing with lions and tigers? This is crazy. This is America. What are they doing with these animals in their backyards? So it really opened my eyes to the abuses these animals were suffering all over the place. And the primary driver, a lot of people think it's the pet trade, but it's really not. It's the people who have their pictures made with cubs, because those cubs can only be used, they're usually taken from their mother immediately after birth. They can only be used for about 12 weeks, and then they can take a finger off. And so as soon as they're not profitable for the people who are pimping them out, they often give them away to people as pets. And then a year later, that person has a 200 or 300 pound carnivore in their house or in their backyard that they can't get rid of fast enough.
Right, and that's a big surprise. Wow, it got big and it wants to eat me now. What do I do?
Yeah.
So, wow. Well, what's the biggest challenge of running the rescue center?
The biggest challenge we run into is apathy and ignorance. People just don't realize how big a problem this is unless they've had some reason to have a neighbor or something with a bunch of big cats in their backyard, and then to them it's a big deal. So in getting a federal bill passed to try and ban the private possession, which is what we're currently trying to do, we're trying to close a loophole that was in the Captive Wildlife Safety Act. It's very difficult to get lawmakers to see this for the dangerous situation that it is. We live in Florida, and a hurricane could hit here tomorrow, and there could be 65 big cats running loose in Tampa. It could flatten our cages, and these cats would all be on the loose. And there shouldn't have to be places like ours that are rescuing cats from horrible situations. We should just stop the horrible situations at the root.
Right. Hopefully there will be a day when that happens and you won't have to exist.
I can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
That's happy news. So, what's the most rewarding thing about running it?
Well, like I said, I started out doing bobcat rehab and release, and I did that since I was 17 years old. We still do it. We take in anywhere from 3 to, I think our peak was like 9 bobcats in a single year. And these are bobcats, they are only native to Florida, are the only ones that we can release because we live in Florida. And they are typically coming to us because they've been hit by a car or shot by a hunter, caught in a trap, or orphaned. So when a mother cat is killed, then these orphan kittens tend to show up, and people will bring them to us for rehab and release back to the wild. the day that that broken or baby bobcat is fully functional and ready to go back to the wild, and we open up that gate and we let that cat run for freedom, that is the best part of what we do, because these cats belong in the wild. They don't belong in cages, and it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to see that cat get a second chance.
Wonderful. What do you want people to understand about what you do?
I think the most important thing that I could get across to people is that anytime you see a lion cub or a tiger cub or a leopard cub on display, think about what had to happen for you to have that experience. Those cats had to be bred for life in prison for the rest of their life just so that you could go have an educational experience with your children. And that's not teaching your kids anything good about wildlife. In fact, I think it's teaching the exact opposite, that it's okay for us to keep these animals captive and to use them for our own amusement, and that's just not right.
Are there any upcoming events or promotions that you want people to be aware of?
Every year for our anniversary in November, we have the Big Cat Walkabout. So when people come to the sanctuary, they walk around on guided tours of groups of about 20 to 25 people each. And we want to make sure that people leave here understanding all of the issues so that they will help us protect these animals. But one day a year, we do what people really want, which is just to be able to wander around and take their time and take their pictures and do the stuff that they want to do. So we bring in all of our volunteers and staff, and we have everybody here making sure the cats are safe and that nobody annoys the cats. And there's going to be 600 people walking around for that this year. It's all of the money from that day goes to conservation projects in the wild. We donate about $100,000 a year to conservation projects in the wild to protect cats where they actually belong. But I think some of the most exciting work that we're doing is in virtual reality 360 video, because people do want a way to educate their children about wild animals, and I don't think that zoos are the answer. But I think zoos could adopt a new model of using a very interactive experience where you're closer and you feel more of a bond with the animal in a headset where you are right there in the middle of everything, just like you were the caregiver for that animal. And so if we can push that technology forward and really make it something that people want to use and experience, then I think that we could also create camera traps for catching that kind of interaction in the wild, which would be so much more educational to really know what these animals are doing when they're out there hunting and raising their families and doing all of the things that cats do. You're never going to learn anything about what an exotic cat is really like in a captive situation.
Very true. Okay, and then how can people help?
I think some of the biggest ways some of the biggest ways that people could help is by really paying attention to what's going on around them. On social media, so many times you'll have somebody posing a picture of themselves posing with a lion or a tiger or some other wild animal cub, and taking a minute to actually educate that person as to why that's so wrong, that the cub had to be ripped away from the mother. They're never allowed to be put back with the mother, or the mother would teach them not to let people touch them. And they spend 12 weeks of their lives being passed around from person to person. Every time somebody wants to put $20 on the table to have their picture made, that cub's going to be awakened and used for the photos, and that's not what cubs need or want to do. And then they're going to spend the next 20 years in a prison cell if they don't die from the handling. So it's really worth it to speak up for those animals who can't speak for themselves.
And is there anything else you want to discuss or mention?
I really hope that people will learn about the situation that these cubs face. You can go to bigcatrescue.org/cubs to learn more about it and become active. We have a wonderful group on Facebook. We have a group, and then we have our regular page, and we have all these admins that try to work and educate people who come to our site. We have about 2.3 million fans currently, so there's always new people coming in. And being able to educate those people who are coming in who may have seen somebody petting some lion or doing something like that in a way that is respectful of the fact that they just don't know any better yet, and giving them the tools they need to be able to protect these animals that they profess so much to love. Those are things that anybody can do no matter where you live.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for talking with me. That was very helpful, and I hope that we've inspired some people to take some action with this.
Thank you so much.
I so appreciate your time, and thanks very much for talking with me today.
All right. Take care.
Okay, I turned the recorder off, but is there anything else you want to say? If you want to email me, like your Twitter or anything like that, if you want me to mention anything else. Okay. When I actually do the radio program, this assignment is due on Monday, but the radio show, I can let you know if my cat is laying on my keyboard. I can let you know when it's actually going to air if you want to listen, or if you want anything else mentioned at that time.
Okay. Well, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I really hope that there's a day that... What would you do if you didn't have to do this? Do you know?
I do, actually. My real passion in life are domestic cats, and I would really like to help move the needle forward on ending the euthanasia of healthy cats and kittens in shelters by adopting aggressive spay and neuter programs. And so I felt like, this whole big cat thing kind of took me by surprise and has taken up 26 years of my life. But I can see the light, and I can see that we're getting there. Attitudes are changing. We're only getting a few calls a year now to rescue big cats. So I really think we can fix this problem. The domestic cat problem, I think, will be a lot harder and a lot longer road and probably take up the rest of my life.
I read somewhere that there's more tigers in the wild now than there used to be, so that's a good sign.
Yes.
That something's happening. Do you have a favorite organization other than your own as far as animal conservation?
Animal conservation. I would say probably Panthera for conservation purposes. As far as for animal advocacy, it would be the Humane Society of the United States and the International Fund for Animal Welfare and Animal Defenders International. Those are all partners of ours in different things that we do trying to protect the animals.
Very cool. That's good to know. I know I'm a big supporter of World Wildlife Fund as well. And I'm hoping that when I get my degree in communication, I can work for some organization like that or like yours to spread the word and do some more, whatever needs to be done at that point.
It's very much needed. And
just so you know, I do have your organization on my Smile at Amazon, and I plan on spending a lot of money this Christmas, so hopefully quite a bit. I don't know what percentage actually goes to you, but I'm hoping that it'll help out a little bit.
It's 0.05%, but it really adds up over time.
Excellent. And hopefully if I get to Tampa soon, I will come visit, okay?
That would
Thanks
be
so
wonderful.
much for talking with me, and email me anything else that you wanted me to say or add or anything, okay?
Will do.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.